I think the visa was one of the single biggest reasons that drew me here. To my knowledge, Georgia is the only country in the world that opens to most passports a 12-month open visa with absolutely no administration, no cost, and you can legitimately, not on a visa run, which I'm sure is something you've discussed a
Sure.
lot of times, that people do places, just sort of cheekily jump out the country and back in. If I leave here for a weekend in Turkey with a couple of friends and I come back, above board, I get another 12 months stamped on my visa.
Okay, so today we are heading to this remarkable country. This country has been on my list to explore and learn about living and retiring in this place because I've heard nothing but amazing, amazing things. And today, my guest, Christopher Murphy, lives in Georgia, in Tbilisi, Georgia. It's the capital of Georgia. Christopher, man, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ray. Nice to be here.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to meet you. So let's dive in a little bit about you. Let's give a little backstory about you. Tell us, Christopher, where you're from and why you left your home country to live in Georgia, and how did you select Tbilisi?
I'm from Scotland. I've ended up in Georgia after expatting, if you will, in a few countries. So I've spent some time in Vietnam, in Turkey, in Malaysia,
Wow.
Thailand, Hong Kong, mostly Southeast Asia. But yeah, um, in Turkey as well. And so I'm always looking for new kind of adventurous places. My job allows me to travel. Um, the phrase has popped up digital nomad in the last couple of years, although I think I'm a little too old to be considered that. However, I suppose to all intents and purposes, that's me. So Georgia, I think, seemed to be one of the up and coming places. I think the the government here have done quite a lot to, I think, encourage expats and digital nomads to come here. So after our friends who travel and always look for new places and things had mentioned it to me, did a bit of research, and here I am, just shy of a year in Tbilisi.
Okay. So where were you prior to Tbilisi?
Um, I was intermittently in the UK for a couple of months, but before that, I spent almost 2 years in Turkey, about a year in Istanbul,
Ooh.
and a year in Antalya. So it's not too far from here. And you'd meet people who would say, have you been to Georgia? It's 2 hours from Turkey, and I planted some seeds, and okay, maybe check it out. It's not a place you think about a lot, and it it's on the cusp, and it feels like you're on the cusp between Europe and Asia in a very kind of unique way.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's an ex-Soviet state, so there are remnants of that. But I
Mm.
mean, much like Berlin, and if anyone's been to Berlin before, a generation after the sort of communism, it's quite vibrant, it's quite become quite a creative place.
Mm.
And I can feel that here too.
Hmm. What is it like in Tbilisi? Explain what the landscape looks like. Is it a large city? Do you know what the population is? Is there a cafe culture? What's the weather like year round?
So first off, what does it look like? It really is that mixture of, I think, sometimes what you would consider to be like cliche ex-Soviet basic housing,
Mm.
but that's spliced with Georgia does have its thousands of year history, and a very distinctive style of architecture, kind of, I want to say maybe turn of the century.
Mm.
If you're in Old Tbilisi, It's very colorful, very quaint, a lot of balconies.
Hmm.
Um, the city's it's less than 1 million people. I believe it's one of the smallest capitals in Europe.
Oh, wow.
And being being a small place definitely is one of the really good things about it. Cafe culture, again, it feels very European. Um, a lot of the kind of stores, whether it's like you say cafes, or fast food restaurants, etc., it feels very European.
Hmm.
And if that is your thing, it's certainly easy to find. The weather, I think, is probably maybe something like kind of New York in the tri-state area. It's
Okay.
really hot in summer and pretty cold in winter. It's
Okay.
not as cold as Scotland in winter, but like in the summer, it's it's really nice. I work in Celsius, so it's about 30, 35 Celsius here most days, like
Mm.
in July, August, which is what's
Yeah.
80, 85 maybe Fahrenheit.
All right. Well, let's dive into to visa. So you're working as a digital nomad there.
Yep,
Um, a lot of the viewers are digital nomads. The bulk of the viewers are people that are retirees with pensions.
yep.
What can you share? What kind of information do you have about the visa requirements over there?
I think the visa was one of the single biggest reasons that drew me here. Um, I I travel from here quite often. It's a few hours from Italy and Croatia and Turkey and these other places that I quite enjoy spending time. So, to my knowledge, Georgia is the only country in the world that opens to most passports a 12-month open visa with absolutely no administration, no cost, and you can legitimately, not on a visa run, which I'm sure is something you've discussed a
Sure.
lot of times, that people do places, just sort of cheekily jump out the country and back in. If I leave here for a weekend in Turkey with a couple of friends and I come back, above board, I get another 12 months stamped on my visa. And again, this is visa on arrival. So if you're a US citizen, if you're from an EU country, guaranteed. I've never heard of anyone having any trouble. So for that reason, it's hugely appealing for me to come here because I do travel other places. There's absolutely no admin. There's no planning. If you want to come here tomorrow, you can do it in terms of the visa. And again, and if I'm incorrect, by all means, people can pull me up. I've never heard of anywhere else doing that. I don't know if you have.
No, that's really, I mean, that is fascinating because I haven't heard of any other places that really do that, where you can just go in, it doesn't cost anything, and they allow you to stay for a full
A
year,
year.
and then
Yeah.
you can just kind of bounce out, come back, and they'll stamp it again for another full year. So they're real, that is really interesting. Um, Okay, that's great, great information. All right, well, let's dive into the rentals. So
Mm.
all the viewers are always wondering, okay, so yeah, I can go, this is great. I can go spend a year there without any difficulty, but I'm going to need a place to live. So what do rentals start for in Tbilisi?
So the rent here is probably the best of anywhere I've spent time long enough that I need a place for a couple of months. So I've got a relatively small place, kind of studio duplex, but in a great part of town, really central. I'm all about the location. I pay $360 a month. Okay.
Okay,
Now that is on the low end, but you can get a one bedroom for between 350 to 600 and a two bedroom from about 5 to 800. And I know people who have got good sized two-bedroom apartments with all the mod cons, even in some cases gyms, swimming pools in the building, and some of the newer ones. I'm a big old building for less than $1,000 a month. I think I have a particularly good deal. My skills are quite sharp when it comes for hunting for a bargain, like a typical tight Scotsman. So, but yeah, 400, absolutely.
well, Christopher, that's a great, there are people that are really savvy in finding apartments that are great deals. what is your strategy? I mean, what is the best way? Like, if you're going to move to Tbilisi and spend some time there, and you're like, oh, hey, you know what? I mean, yeah, I see that there are six, $700 one bedrooms, but I see that there are guys that are paying 400 for the same thing or 350 for the same thing. How did they get that deal? What's your
Mm.
strategy?
Okay, there's two things you need to do, in my opinion. The first one is to understand the culture a little bit. Okay,
Hmm.
what's expected in terms of business etiquette, so to speak. Some cultures are very, there's certain do's and don'ts. Try and understand that a little bit. Okay, here, for instance, it's generally accepted that if you're a foreigner, an expat, you'll pay a little bit more for rent. A lot of countries are like that. If you can find that out and then get a scope for the market first, and then find out what is the business culture. Is it a friend of a friend you want to speak to? Do you want to be introduced? What makes it attractive? In most cases, to communicate that you're going to stay there long term. If you go to any landlord and say, I'm thinking about 3 to 6 months, maybe something like that. The truth is, if you treat it the same as if you're looking for an apartment back home and you're like, no, no, I'm here and I'm going to commit, that reassures them. The flighty thing is they think they can get a little bit more money out of foreigners, out of expats here,
Sure.
maybe. But I think if you show them that you're a steady pair of hands, that's going to help. At least that was my understanding here. And the
Mm,
second one is make sure you know where to look.
mm,
Georgia is actually there's a lot less channels to look through for things. If you want to buy some secondhand furniture or you want to have an apartment or buy a motorbike, it all seems to be through Facebook here. So the
mm,
second thing is find out where the market is. Yeah. In Vietnam, for instance, there's like Right Move website or something like that. The name escapes me, but that's a great one for finding a place. Here, it tends to be Facebook. And then to try and have some kind of personal relationship with the landlord, don't go to agencies here.
mm.
Um, that seems to have worked for me. I'm
Yeah.
patient though. I'm
Yeah.
patient as well.
Yeah, great tip, great advice. Do you have to, what do they require like a 1 month deposit, or how does that work?
Again, a lot of the places here you'll see advertised. I think every rental market does this now. Some of them ask for a month's deposit, first month and last month rent. I just will not ever do that. I don't care if I'm on the moon, I'm in Georgia, or if I'm in Glasgow. I think it's too much to ask. So I pay a deposit, first month's deposit, and I think I had to pay a small cleaning fee or something like that. But basically, just on principle for me, that's a deal breaker. I'm not handing over three times the amount of a month's rent.
Hmm.
Um, Again, you bear in mind that if you understand the market and that you're going to be paying a premium, even $400 is a premium here. Um, Play your card as you will. If you've, especially if you're a little bit more mature, you're not some backpackers.
Yeah,
Um, if you can put that out there and say, look, I'm staying here for a year, then I think that's a little bit of currency. So if you know that the culture's forgiving of it, don't be scared to stake what you will and won't do, you know,
sure. Yeah, yeah,
within respectful boundaries.
right. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Good info. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to, do any of these rentals include utilities, or are they separate?
Separate, but
Yeah.
incredibly low for utilities. So they have a great system for how they pay things here too. So
Hmm.
for utilities, I work it out being about $20 a month, and that includes my gas, my electricity, and there's a tiny amount for city maintenance, which is basically street sweeping. And the streets are beautifully clean, like exceptionally clean. Um, you pay that for anything because there's no post here, there's no mailman, right? Um, so for everything now, there's kiosks in the street everywhere where you go in and type in your account number for gas or for whatever it may be, even your mobile phone number, and you pay at the machine to pay bills, to top up. I don't know if that's commonplace a lot of places now, but the machines are absolutely everywhere and it's very easy, very convenient to do. So I pay about $20 for the house stuff, a $10 for internet, and the internet's pretty reliable compared to some places I've been, which is obviously really important for my work.
Mm.
It's definitely acceptable. So all in, you're talking $30, you know. Oh, I have my cell phone cost me, what's it? 50 Larry. So yeah, that's less than $15 as well. And that's for unlimited internet and phone and text anybody. Yes, about
Wow.
$15. It's great, right? You can see that with the visa, mate, right? Right? With the
Like
visa and home and dry for 500 bucks. It's pretty appealing, right?
it is, man. So you're saying gas, electric, including, and that's water as well, and then also like a maintenance fee, and your fee is about $20 a month for all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Wi-Fi is 10 additional dollars, and then your cell phone is 15, and that's unlimited.
Yeah. And what's good though is I do pay that all directly in one, although you can use the machines, I pay it all to my landlord in one go.
Wow.
Uh, yeah.
Now your studio, it looks like you got a really cool studio.
It's
Uh,
a funky little place. Yeah.
is there like a loft up there? Like a loft behind?
Yeah, well, oh, I don't remember what you guys call it on the other side of the pond. Um, it's like, yeah, you know what? This is the kind of place that if you're in Tokyo or Manhattan would cost you $2,500, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
that's a mezzanine up there. So there's a bed, there's a little space with a sofa and a TV.
Yeah.
So you've got yeah. So it's pretty small, but I'm a little bit of a sucker for the to move into the busy, cool part of town, and this is really central. Great bar culture, sort of hipster thrift store rubbish, which I'm far too old for,
Wow.
but it's yeah, that's what I mean. It's like a little bit. I feel like this neighborhood, which is called Marnage's Villey. This is a little like older buildings, but there is a mixture of old and new,
Mhm.
like some taller buildings and stuff. But yeah, this is quite quaint. Across from me is an old power station that's been converted into a youth hostel, like a really funky youth hostel, which has got a courtyard with all kinds of different food, Mexican and Japanese, and there's thrift stores and open gardens
Mhm.
and art exhibitions and stuff. So it's as vibrant as any European city in that respect.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. That sounds like just an amazing place to live. And so it looks like you can walk pretty much anywhere.
In the summertime, it's one of my favorite things about this city is it's really it's really easy to walk about.
Hmm.
There's a lot of green spaces. Tbilisi is actually at the bottom on three sides. There are huge mountains, right? So in a big valley. But yeah, the city itself, unless you start getting to the peripherals, is really flat and easy to walk around for sure.
Hmm. Okay. Well, since we're talking about walking around and getting around, what is transportation like? Is there a metro system there, public transportation? What does it cost to get around? And what do you think a person that is living there would need to
Mhm.
budget to just kind of bounce around town?
Transport, again, is one of the biggest pluses about living here.
Okay.
Number one, this city's tiny, right? It's small. It's smaller than Glasgow. It's yeah, south of 1 million people. You can walk everywhere, but if you do want transport, there is a subway system which is comprehensive enough to get you anywhere you're going to need to go. I think there's maybe 4 lines. The city's a big X shape, and you can get to all the main parts. The cost is what is about it's like 20 cents per ride.
Per ride. Wow.
20 cents. It's the same as again most European cities. You have a travel card that you top up.
Yep.
It's not difficult. It also is kind of cool because it's a Soviet era underground, which is, I don't know, for me, there's like quite a lot of character, and
Yeah.
some of the stations are quite sort of theatrical and pretty cool. That's just what
Hmm.
floats my boat. But also, I hate to say this, I hate to be a bougie foreigner, but the taxis here are an absolute delight, right? What their equivalent of Uber or Lyft is called Bolt that I use. I
Oh,
can go anywhere in the city from between $2 to $5,
wow.
and you never wait long.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's
the
with Bolt.
cabs are, yeah, Bolt, and
Okay.
it's reputable. Some people badmouth it on the expat grapevine, but honestly, I find the cars are clean, they're really quick, and yeah, you know, you're not waiting. Even if it's a Saturday night and you're in the busy part of town, you're never waiting for long. So the
Yeah.
transport is an absolute joy here.
Yeah. But do they have a bus system there, public bus system as well?
They do, but such is the efficiency of the other two that I've never been on one.
Okay.
But the travel cards you use for the subway are the same ones you will use for the bus, and also the tourist stuff. So there's some quite cool cable cars that take you to tourist spots, to up mountains and to some statues and so on. And it's all run by the city, and you can use them the same travel card for all of that.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, let's move on to groceries. Everybody wants to know groceries are have become astronomical in a lot of Western countries. What do you spend on groceries per month there?
So I do grocery shopping every week. In the region for myself, um, in the region of $75.
Okay.
Um, I do buy water here. You can drink the tap water. Um, I'm a little bit of a princess about it though, because I'm from the north of Scotland, and we have crystal clear springs coming straight off there. Okay, right? I'm a little bit of a princess, so like I always buy water. Uh, Meat here is, if you're a carnivore, meat here is pretty cheap. Well, compared to in Western Europe, and I presume stateside, meat hasn't jumped up in price that much. Um, in the year I've been coming here, I haven't noticed much of a hike in prices comparative to other places, you
Mhm.
know? Um, Fresh produce, vegetables, and fruit is readily available from like the supermarkets, but also street vendors everywhere. Also, there's still quite a lot of like butcher shops, which
Mhm.
seem to disappear in a lot of other places. Um, the variety of foods are maybe not what everyone would want. In terms of convenient stuff and junk food. But your basics is good. And the dairy in this country is great because they've got a lot of grassland, so that means you've got nice, good eggs and good milk and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, so it's reasonable, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, so you're looking at it sounds like you spend about 300 a month. If you
Yeah, but yeah, about that. That works like 200 Larry tops, that keeps the cupboards full.
All right, so now let's get into the fun stuff. So you said you like to go out, you got some pubs and cafes nearby. I mean, so for entertainment, restaurants, going out to a local mom and pop, what is a Georgian meal? This mom and pop, you go in and get a nice meal or lunch for. What is the cost of that? What do you do for entertainment? How much does a beer cost? And then give us an idea what you'd budget per month for that.
So for a mampa, Georgian food will surprise people as well. Between five to $8 for a good sized meal. That's for
Okay.
lunch or for dinner. And Georgian food, the most famous sort of staples are like khinkali dumplings, which are kind of soft steamed dumplings with very brothy, maybe chicken, vegetable, or beef. They're hugely popular. Not my favorite, but and the other one is khachapuri, which is like a bread dish with eggs and cheese is phenomenal after a few beers.
Ooh,
Really good, right? Really good.
it sounds
Also,
good.
uh, Ajarian food. Ajarian food's a specific region of Georgia, not Tbilisi, but that's the best food. So if you see Ajarian mom and pop restaurants, that's the places you want to go. A lot of vegetables, a lot of meats. Um, Georgian food surprised me, and yeah, it's not expensive. Also, because the proximity to Turkey, um, if you want to grab something to eat, kebab shops are shawarma are really cheap and
Mm.
everywhere.
How much can you
And
get shawarma for in Georgia?
uh, I can get a shawarma the size of my leg for like delivered at 3 a.m. for definitely for like yeah, about $8 tops.
Wow. What is a typical kind of a night out? Where do you go? Or what do you do when you go get a coffee? Are there, do you sit out in cafes and what do you pay for a beer?
Yep.
Yeah, give us an idea of where you go, what you do.
Cafe culture here is pretty prevalent. Um, I would say again, it's a mixture of Eastern Western Europe. Um, I'm not a big cafe guy. I like to go out for a beer, and the bars are all uh, um quite I don't want to say modern, but there's not a huge prominence of traditional Georgian bars or whatever that would be,
Yeah.
which is maybe something that I always like to find out about, like like in Vietnam, if you go to a beer hoy, for example. So there's not a lot of that, but there's quite a strong drinking culture here. Um, there are a reasonable number of pubs and bars, sports bars, nicer cocktail places. Again, what you'd expect in most European cities.
Hmm.
Uh, the cost is not bad. There's a lot of beers produced here. Nadaktari, that's probably my favorite one. And you're talking about $3 to $5 for a beer.
Hmm.
Um, the Georgian spirit of choice is called cha-cha, and that's only about $2 or $3. Don't spend the whole night drinking it. You might get offered one in hospitality. Have one, okay, maybe have two, but you go back to the beer after that, is my staunch advice. Bar culture is good, and there's a lot of live music. And I'm not talking about sort of original music. I'm talking about accessible, you know, play as the hits kind of bar stuff in early evening, whether that's like in an Irish bar or somewhere more relaxed, and a mixture of styles of music, which
Hmm.
was a surprise to me and is really pleasant. So there's still a nice culture of that. Um, and the nightlife, if you want to go night clubbing, Tbilisi is actually one of the best cities in Europe. I'm talking of, if you're listening to techno music, house music, you want to stay
Sure.
out till the sun comes up. It's an absolute hidden gem in terms of that. There's some of the most renowned clubs in the world here, just quietly.
Mm.
Um, in terms of if you like to see established pop acts, or it's not really on the circuit for where a lot of people you might know come, but earlier in the year, Bruno Mars was here, and that was a big deal,
Yeah.
for like a big stadium gig. So it's not like you've fallen off the end of the earth, and
Hmm.
you'll find some nice, homely, Western tinged entertainment, but certainly a vibrant enough nightlife for how small the place is.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a really awesome place to live. So if you broke it down, I mean, just let's look at just like your restaurant costs. Going out maybe a couple times to however, 2, 3 times a week. What do you think you'd budget per month to eat out there?
Yeah, you could go out on a Friday, Saturday night and spend a Sunday afternoon in a cafe or you know watching the soccer as I do.
All right, well, great. Well, let's move on to healthcare. What is the
Yep.
healthcare like? Every viewer wants to know, especially retirees want to know, do they have a public healthcare system? What can you tell us about the price of it, if there is a cost?
So Georgia does have a public healthcare system, but it's what you'd call a hybrid public healthcare system, which is depending what you needed, there's public and private entities operating side by side. Um, if you're here and you have a residence permit, as
Hmm.
opposed to what I have, which is just the open visa, then
Sure.
you're entitled to the universal care. Now,
Okay.
I am not. Now, I did point out how easy and great the visa was, but um, I'm not entitled off the bat to the universal care. So you do need a proper visa to qualify for that.
Okay.
Um, However, I've been lucky enough. I haven't needed any health care, and I have a very basic travel and insurance policy that I've done for years,
Hmm.
put in the locations and renew it. Um, but to give you an idea, if you did have you because it if you do have the universal care, not everything's covered, and the price example for a CT scan, if you needed such a thing,
Hmm.
will fluctuate. Okay. Um, the minimum price can be $1 and the maximum can be $9,000, but the average price people are charged is about $1,000. So that gives you an idea. Insurance is recommended. So
Okay.
while I've not used it, it's I think for basic care, with a residence visa, um, which happens on you can I think you can get 2 year, 3 year, and 5 year visas. Um, Although I'm really not sure on that. I'll check. But if you do have any of those, you'll get the universal care. How they determine what's paid for and what's not is is I don't know. But I
Hmm.
can give you an idea of dental, for example. Uh, Dental care, I don't think much of it is included, but there is very cheap and readily available private dentists here,
Hmm.
much like again in Turkey. So if you want to get your teeth cleaned here, it can be done professionally without a waiting list for $90. And
Okay.
if you want a cavity filled in your teeth, that can be as low as $30. So
Okay.
they're really easy and plentiful for to see dentists. I know that.
Okay. All right. Great. That's fantastic information. Well, Christopher Murphy,
Yeah.
thank you so much, man, for sharing
Uh,
all this wonderful information and tips and about this amazing country, Georgia, and living in Tbilisi. I really appreciate it.
it's been really interesting, and I really like what you do. And myself, I'm going to have a look through a lot more of your podcasts and maybe get an idea of where my next location might be, Ray.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a great rest of the day.
Cool.
Thanks for doing this, and I'll
You
talk to you
you
soon.
too. You too.